Hey guys, and welcome to the first video where I'm actually going to be doing some Fallout New Vegas modding in this series. And today what I want to do is I want to introduce the mod for Tale of Two Wastelands that I saw, I liked, and I wanted to change and make better or fix it. Then we'll go through at least one of the fixes, okay? We've got a lot to do as far as it is concerned, and we'll just sort of see what happens. Okay, so the mod in question is mobile truck base. I think it's super cool, and it has a lot of like neato burrito features in it, I think. So it can come as a van, which I don't care for, but the inside is rather nice. We've got this spacious area with all kinds of crafting and storage and sleeping space and the whatnot. It's cool. This is the one I really like. It's a crate in the back of a truck. Awesome. And yeah, it can come in a variety of different colors, etc. Oh, there was like right here. This was kind of cool. This is a different truck that I don't see anywhere else. That one's also nice. And how this mod was released, it has a data which has all your meshes and textures and sounds and the whatnot. And then he released the individual ESP plugins for depending on what kind of truck you wanted, which I thought was rather nice. Now, when you encounter New Vegas mods and you're thinking about TTW, Google searches are the first thing that you should do. Okay, but also you want to look at the date. Okay, regardless if it's TTW compliant or not. Like if it's before 2018, there may be some problems. Well, actually, if it's TTW compliant before 2018, there may be some problems because that's when the newest version of Tale of Two Wastelands was released. So I went up to the handy dandy search bar, typed in mobile truck based TTW, and two separate mods came up. So let's take a look at them. The first one is just mobile truck based TTW edition. Great. And I saw right off the bat, can drive between the wastelands. Oh, that's the feature I want. That's super cool. Thank you very much, King Matt. Oh yeah, for the record, the original one was by TDX 73. Okay. So, looking at what King Matt did, cool. It's one truck that lets you travel. Oh, and he references an existing patch of this in TTW. So we're going to take a look at that in a moment. Okay. Fix some issues with hardcore. Please report any bugs. There's still some bugs, dude. Use a crate truck. Awesome. Locations aren't shown until you visit them. Fantastic. You have a GPS where you can scroll and visit them. Cool. Gibson Scrapyard or the Scrapyard in DC. You got to find a key. It's in a container. Fantastic. I like how this is built. Okay. Now we've got a major problem. 2015 here when it says TTW compliance. So there's going to be a problem there. There's no bugs thing, which is sometimes a red flag. So let's click on posts. And by clicking on posts, you can see, and if you notice carefully, I've started writing on it. But Edursul basically pointed out that it referenced a TTW script, which is no longer in existence. That's from an old, I think, 2.9 version before they redid the code. And so he did a fix. We're not going to use it. But he also found other problems that he couldn't fix. Like there was no New Vegas intro video the first time you traveled, which is a problem. We want that. It says 9 years later instead of 3 years later, which is also wrong. If you look at the timing between Fallout 3 and New Vegas storylines, it's roughly 3 years. And after you leave Doc Mitchell's house, the truck will be waiting for you there instead of the scrapyard. I think that's okay. That makes sense to me. You were driving through Good Springs, you got jumped, shot. Your truck should be there. It was probably brought to the Doc's house. Great. Known issues from the original mod. Does not work with homemade flamer fuel. Poop. Okay, and then furthermore, distance settings are not applied correctly. You have the same values for short and long. So there are some problems here we need to fix, but it does travel. And so I think that's a good base. But let's look at mobile truck-based Tale of Two Wastelands 3.2 by PintoCat. Now, first off, 3.2, awesome. Date 2019, awesome. PintoCat, also awesome. They are active on the TTW forums. Now, look at that. Oh, one truck per wasteland. So you can't go back and forth. So that's a problem for me. He fixes, oh, look at that. He fixed the hardcore safe advanced days. Fantastic. And some world space records. Cool. Some other bugs. Just other things that I hadn't thought about before. Okay. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to use this one as a base. Okay. And then maybe check to see what other bug fixes PintoCat put in, and we'll talk about some of the like thought process behind why they work and the whatnot. Now, I have downloaded all of these mods, and I appreciate the work done by everybody, whether there was bugs in it or not. I'm just going to endorse them all. I've downloaded them all. They're all installed, but the thing is, both of these TTW versions supply the ESP. So when we're looking at that, let's bring up the mod organizer. I should only have one active at a time, and that's the one that I'm going to be editing in order to make my patch. Okay, I found some problems where if you're writing a script that's connected to an object, if you try to do it like a patch, like we do in Fallout 4, where you just sort of overwrite that record in your ESP or ESL or whatever, then everything behaves well. And I think that's because we are able to set properties, and so it knows where to reference, and then it sets up a dependency like, oh, okay, I'm dependent on that other mod because I got a property from there. It doesn't seem to work the same way in New Vegas. It seems like you're just basically rewriting the entire ESP. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to be structurally directly editing the ESP that's provided in the TTW edition. That's the one where you can travel back and forth but has all the problems. We're going to fix said problems. Okay, but I still have this in case later we want to check sort of how some of the other bug fixes occurred. Make sense? Cool. So that leads us to basically a task list of what we've got to do to bring this mod up to standard, what we're going to be doing in several videos. Okay, so the first one, which we will definitely be doing today, is we're going to bring it up to TTW 3.2 compliance by fixing that hardcore script. We're going to look at how it was implemented, what it was intending to do, and then do it ourselves. Okay, we're going to fix the fuel bug. That'll be done in a second video. Revise the Capital Wasteland to Mojave Wasteland travel, just to make sure that it follows exactly how TTW 3.2 has it set up on the train, so that we can trigger certain variables there and do it in a similar way so that that intro video shows up and all that fun stuff. And that way we don't get a sort of thing where we travel to Mojave, and then if we ever take the train, which is provided in Tale of Two Wastelands, it acts like we've gone there for the first time. We don't want to do that. We don't want to bork anything like that. We then want to incorporate any of the Pinto Cat fixes into this mod, into this patch. Not sure what to do after that, but definitely we're going to profit after. You know that's not true. We're modding here. We're not making any goddamn money off of it. Okay, we set up the GECK in the last video. Let's go ahead and open that up. Do a little dance while we wait. My phone made a flash. I'm really good at making content for YouTube. My wife is sad that the cat's not cuddling her. So just like in the normal creation kits, or in all the creation kits, we're gonna hit the open folder here. It's kind of nice. It's got all these guys already selected for reasons I don't understand. Okay, it's almost like it doesn't select all the ESM, so I don't know if they're flagged or something like that. I'm gonna go MTB. There it is. We're gonna go ahead and set that as my active file, and then hit OK. And then we get to wait, so we get to dance some more. I'm out of coffee. Oh, no, I got a little bit. Quality content. All right. It's going to say not responding. Every creation kit says not responding. Ignore that shit. All these errors that pop up like this one, just press continue. Boop. All right, and there'll be several of them. You just hit continue through. But remember what I said, keep an eye out for anything that references your mod, because it's going to be important. Let's get a little extra light in here. I bet you didn't know because I didn't sound bald, but I am bald. All right. You'll know things are going on when if this little tag down here is flashing around like land sale, it's loading stuff up into memory. That's fine. And this number should tick by. If it ever freezes and you don't see anything, that means an error window did pop up and you can't see it. If you come down here, there'll be another GECK window open. Just go ahead and click on it to find the error or the warning that popped up. And I think I actually clicked through the error for mobile truck base. Nope, here it is. So it says right here, could not find a particular reference on script TDX hardcore safe advanced hours. And if we look at 10, and if we know 10 happens to be where Tale of Two Wastelands is. So this is definitely pointing to like, hey, that's a problem. Okay. But we're just going to go ahead and hit continue anywho. Continue. Continue. And as soon as this object window goes black like that, that means initializing object window is down here. And then when it populates, we're in. Okay. Now, what's really cool, and I actually kind of appreciate on this older version of the GECK, is that under the miscellaneous heading, there is a script type. So it separates out all the scripts and you can look at all of them independently. And that's kind of neat. Now, if we don't know what the prefix is that the mod author uses, and if you don't know what I'm talking about, when you make changes or make records, always try to put a prefix in front of your records. So like I usually put like coots. And so that way they're easy to find what you're working on. But I'm just going to tap form ID and 13, or the last one, this is the last mod that was loaded, mobile truck base. So TDX, that's the prefix du jour. So I'm just going to type it in filter so that no matter what we're clicking on right now, TDX comes up. Okay, now remember our first task was to bring it into 3.2 compliance with Tale of Two Wastelands. And so we know who the offending script is, right? It was in hardcore safe advance hours. So we're going to double click on that to take a peek. And if we look, it defines 4 variables. It has a function which has 4 inputs. Great. And then it starts this arduous process of figuring out how many days and hours have passed. And then it calls this function which no longer exists. Hardcore advanced safe advanced days. All right. So maybe what we should do is we should check how this script is used to try to figure out what this is actually doing. Okay, so I'm going to right click on this and go to use info. And we've got a travel quest script. So I'm going to close that. All right, it's a biggin. Okay, and if we look through here, what we can see is right here, advanced safe hours 2. And then advanced hardcore needs by a particular amount. That's the function it's using. Okay. Or advanced hardcore safe advanced days, not hours. This is directly referring to the old TTW function, which no longer exists. And then advanced needs. So what this raises is that the mod author made a particular design choice, and we are either going to follow through with it or change our minds and design it in a different way. Okay, what they said was like, if you're playing hardcore mode and you're using this as fast travel, you use the actual time that you were traveling to adjust for hardcore use, like needs, or do you use some sort of proxy for that? Now, there are pros and cons for either one. Like if you use the actual one, then hey, you're actually traveling. The obvious con is if you travel for 14 days without eating or drinking or sleeping, your character is probably going to die upon reaching the destination. So you'd have to do some sort of like interrupt and use food or the whatnot. Like we don't want to do anything like that. That just sounds like a big pain in the butt. Okay, so using a proxy is probably our best bet. And what we see here, what is this proxy here? Advanced hardcore needs. Okay, and then it takes in this TDX dot HNG local, TDX HYD local, TDX vars, SLP local. And the difference here, this is for this block right here is for when you're traveling either within the capital wasteland or within the Mojave wasteland. And then this block right here is for when you're traveling between the 2 wastelands, saying it takes 2 weeks. Okay, and then we can see we got HNG long, HYD long, and SLP long. Now, what this format is, this little dot thing, is it says, hey, there is a script somewhere called TDX vars, and in it is a variable called like HYD long. Take that number, put it here. So if we look, this is everything to do with the variable script. Whoops. Let's go ahead and get rid of that. I'm very good at making videos. And so in this script, all we have is a bunch of defined variables with no values, but then it begins a quest called TDX vars, sets the stage to 1, and then stops the quest afterwards. So we should check what that quest does. This is the rabbit hole that often happens when you are making edits to somebody else's or trying to see how they work. You just start opening it up, looking how they implemented it, and following that trail. So we look at the TDX vars quest. We see right here under script, it has this script in it. So this script is associated with this quest, which is start game enabled. Okay, so as soon as you start the game, even though there's a script processing delay here, which means don't just run the script. I will tell you when to run the script, okay? So it's there, it's in memory, it's waiting, okay? Now, That's sitting there. This thing gets called. It says, hey, go to stage 1. What does stage 1 do? So we click on stage 1. And over here, oh, look at this. It sets each of the variables to a particular numerical value. These are the defaults. All right, so this was the design choice made, was to use local hunger, hydration, and sleep values of 28.5, 72, and 14.5. And then long distance, about 5 times those amounts. And then fuel, the difference between local and long is 10 and 100. And then there's this hardcore needs cap. So like you can set it that if you were traveling and it's going to end up taking more desired things than you want it to, it will just cap it at 950 and be like, hey, don't use any more. Don't kill the fucking player when it reaches their destination. I think these are very sound design choices. It's this trade-off between realism and doability. And also what it has to do is you are able to set these values as a way to not penalize, but balance the idea of, hey, I've got a fast travel. Not only do I have a fast travel, but when I get there, I have all this stuff available to me. I've got a bed. I've got all my containers full of shit. It's my mobile base. That's really powerful. Okay. So we can see right now that there's a few instances where we're going to have to make edits just to bring it into 3.2 compliance. Okay. It references a bad function in here that no longer exists, or rather it's a bad reference to a function that no longer exists in 2 different scripts in 2 different places. The context of this is horrible. This should have called this script with 0.1400, which would have called that. That would have made at least consistent coding. Okay. The rest of this doesn't involve that, so we're not going to look. What we should do is to try to find any other scripts that actually include it. So there's those 2. So we're going to go back to script. And we're going to look at TDX. Now, this one has hardcore needs, so let's take a peek at it. It does nothing. This is just damaging the player's actor value of hunger by a particular amount, hydration by a particular amount, and sleep deprivation. This is how they advance the needs. This is how they implemented the proxy business. This is fantastic. I like this bit of code. Makes me happy. Okay? So it says, like, as long as this is below the cap, do this. As long as this is below the cap, do this. Okay, so I think that's fantastic. Okay, so let's go ahead and close that, and then we keep looking here. Fuel container, Gibson safe, activators, terminal, MCM quest. We will be looking at that at a later point. Travel book quest, travel quest. Ooh, travel quest. That's probably interesting. Handles the traveling from Nevada to DC from DC for the first time. So this is great. This is that very first travel. And so if we look through here, we're going to try to find any reference to the hardcore thing. There's no hardcore needs here. So that first time you travel, it doesn't even penalize you. It just says right here, advance it safely by 14 days with no advancing of hardcore needs. So we've got 3 scripts with the references that we're going to have to edit. Okay. Now, in order to edit these, what we're going to want to do is to use a function that will be able to advance time. Okay. But we don't want it to advance time in such a way that your hardcore needs will continue to tick. Because if that happens, then we haven't done a proxy. We double penalizing. Hey, you use the regular needs and you're going to use all these other things. So that's a problem. And so what we're going to do, one thing that you can do, and there'll be a link in the description, is you can go to the GECK Wiki and look at all the GIP, LN, and VSE functions. Okay, so that's to do with that plugin that we used, and we can look at the functions. And there's a couple different functions that are really, really important here. So let's go ahead and make this big. Okay, and the first one that we're going to do right here, you can't see it that well. It's called Get Game Hour. So I'll go ahead and open that in another link. And then we also want to say, hey, do you do anything with hardcore? And there's a function called toggle hardcore tracking. So we're going to want to look at that too. Okay, so let's open it up in a couple tabs. Now, set game hour. Let's look at this. Okay, so it has a nice description. It provides a safe and convenient way to set the game hour global and or advanced game time without the risk of corrupting the other game time globals. Fucking badass. So what you do, the syntax, that's the first box up there, is set game hour, and then you input a game hour, which is a float, okay? A floating point. And so some examples here, set current game hour to 1 p.m., which is 13. And right down here, 104, it says advance by 4 days and set the current game hour to 8 a.m. So if I'm to understand these correctly, it's actually a little complicated, okay? What it does, I think, is if it's less than 24 hours, yeah, I think if it's less than 24 hours, what it does is it just advances time to that point, okay? Or rather, yeah, if the hour you put in is greater than your current game hour, then it'll advance by that many hours. If it's less, fucking hey, how does it go again? So if it's 1 p.m. right now and you say set game hour to 8 a.m., it'll advance you to the next 8 a.m. point. Okay. If it's currently 8 a.m. and you set it to 13, it'll just advance you to the next one. Now, if you have a number greater than 24, it'll advance you a certain number of days, and then whatever's left over, it'll advance that. That was sublimely confusing. Okay. Suffice it to say, it either sets you in the same day or the next certain number of days in a way that makes sense. Okay. Now, toggle hardcore tracking, what does that do? It stops or resumes the buildup of hardcore needs like food, water, and sleep as game time passes. Fuck yeah. How to use it? The syntax is you call toggle hardcore tracking, and then toggle on gives you put a 1 or a 0 in there. All right, so this is going to be fantastic. Now that's toggle on. So yes to turn it on, 0 to turn it off is how I believe it's going to work. Okay. Now that I've thoroughly confused everybody with my needlessly complex description, we are going to first edit this function right here. And I'm not actually sure we need this function at all. Okay, we're going to leave it here, but I really do think that this is now completely moot. Okay, although I'm going to have to type the same thing over and over again, so we'll probably use this in a different manner. Yes, definitely in a different manner. Okay. So it's always going to take in hours. That is the first decision that I'm going to make, is that it will always take in hours. We're not going to do this complicated how many days business, yada, yada, yada. It's going to delete all of this. Okay. Now, when it takes in a certain number of hours, we're doing a safe advance. So we're not penalizing for hardcore needs. Okay. So the very first thing we need to do is we need to basically turn off hardcore needs. And so we're going to call toggle. What the hell was the name of the function? I think it's just hardcore needs, right? Hardcore tracking. Toggle hardcore tracking. Okay. So first and foremost, turn it off. No longer penalize everything. And so stop tracking. Now, the next thing we do is we want to advance time by 2 hours. Now, if I'm understanding it correctly, what it will do is we need the current time, and then we need to add 2 hours to that current time in order to advance it. Let's see if we can find a instance where this has been used by TTW. That may help us. Now, I happen to know they have train scripts, trip quest. Okay, great. And there's a reference to it down here. Set game hour to this. They don't even use it. They just use game hour. If TTW is just using game hour, we're just going to use game hour. Okay. So if I look at this right here, and we will go over this script in great detail. Okay. Game hour is a global variable. It's built into the system. It's the current number of hours that have passed since August 18th, 2277 in the game. It adds 336, which is the number of hours in 2 weeks, and then sets the global to the global's previous value plus 336. Okay, great. So it advances the time. This right here is a very special thing. This number was chosen so that when you move from the Capital Wasteland to the Mojave Wasteland for the first time, it's exactly the date that Fallout New Vegas is supposed to start on. Since that's how they're using it, that's how we're going to use it. All right. Cool. So what we're going to do right here, we've turned off the hardcore tracking. Okay, I like to leave spaces. Now we're going to set game hour to whatever the game hour is right now, plus hours to pass. Okay, and so that'll advance us quite nicely here. Okay, so a little note on these buttons up here. Don't ever push the disk with red in it. It'll ask you if you want to recompile all scripts, and that means it'll recompile every single script that is currently loaded in the creation kit. Don't ever press that. Press this save one. It'll save and compile. If you don't get any errors, that means it actually has saved. Previously, before we made the changes of installing that mod that extended the usefulness of the GECK, it would just be silent, and you would know it didn't compile right if it ever said like, hey, you didn't save this. We're going to go ahead and push this red arrow when we're done, but right now I'm going to keep it right here because this is what it is. I want to be able to reference how I'm using it. So let's look at this travel business. So not the first time, just every time go back and forth. Okay. So like I said before, this if block right here means, is the travel that we're currently calling for within the same wasteland we are currently in? Okay. Now if it is, I want to safe advance hours by 2. That does this. So it's going to pass in 2, advanced game time. Okay, and then advanced hardcore needs. Oh no, we forgot to do something. We need to turn hardcore needs back on. Okay, we've introduced a bug into the game now. By doing this, do you know what it is? I'll give you a second. Okay. If you're not already in hardcore mode, when you come in here, it'll stay not in hardcore mode and then turn it on against your wishes. So that's bad. We should check get hardcore tracking. Look at that. That's useful. Returns whether hardcore tracking, the gradual buildup of hunger, dehydration, and sleep deprivation, is enabled or suspended. The syntax. So it has a return of a value, get hardcore tracking. Example is set a value within your script to get hardcore tracking. Fantastic. So what we're going to do right here is we got to put a control structure of if get hardcore tracking. All right. Now, if you want it to be really thorough here, you'd put a double equals and then a 1, right? I'm comparing it to 1. What you should be able to do is not put that there, and that 1 should be cast automatically to a Boolean, a yes or no, that says yes, because the outcome of this is the same as will be a yes or no, okay? But we're going to turn that on. What I'm going to do right here now, we need to keep track of whether or not we actually turned it off, okay? So right here, I'm going to declare an int. I'm going to call it was hardcore. And we're going to set was hardcore to 0. Right here, we're going to set was hardcore, to 1. I forget. I always want to write the equal sign because that's how you do it in normal programming languages. Okay. And then right here, if was hardcore is the same as 1, turn it back on. And this is moot. You don't have to do this because It'll never get used again, but screw it. We'll just do that. You know what? I don't know how this engine works with extraneous stuff, how much computing time. There. So let's go over this script and we'll put comments on it, okay? Safely advance hours while hardcore mode is active without accruing hunger, dehydration, or sleep deprivation. I don't know how to spell deprivation. Okay. I put a semicolon because that's like how you, everything after the semicolon on a line is ignored. Okay. How many hours to ignore? All right. This is going to be used. You know what? We should never use this function. This function should never be called if we're not in hardcore mode. None of this should. We should just throw in an idiot check into all of this. Yes, that's a fantastic idea. Right here. If get hardcore tracking is the same as 1. And if. So when we come in here, we know for a fact hardcore was already being active. So we don't need to do the check in here. We just need to do all the overhead. I like that. Okay. Yeah. Turn off tracking needs. I don't want to say hardcore anymore in a video. Advance game time. Turn back on tracking needs. Save. Cool. It compiled. So now we'll come back here. And so what this is a local trip, which should only take 2 hours. And so we're going to check if hardcore tracking was involved. If it was, safely advance it. And then advance it according to our proxy. Cool. And now right here, we've got a long trip. If get hardcore, I don't want to say hardcore anymore, tracking is the same as 1. And if. Now right here, we're calling a function that we're no longer allowed to call. Okay, we're advancing it by 14 days. Okay, so we're going to call the function TDX hardcore safe advance hours. And 14 times 24 was what again? It's 300 and something. I don't remember. Calc. 14 times 24 is 336. Fantastic. All right. We will look for anywhere else in this script where we advance it. And no, the rest of this is just where do I move. Excellent. This script has been edited and fixed. Okay, we'll move that over here. Actually, you know what? We can close this one. We're done with this one for now. There are other problems in this script, but we will handle them at a different time. Right now, we're just bringing this up to 3.2 compliance. Boom. And if you do that and it doesn't prompt you like, hey, do you want to save this? That means it compiled and everything's all hunky-dory. Okay. Now, right here, this handles traveling from New Vegas to DC for the first time using the travel guide. Okay, great. And all we're doing right now is we're bringing it up to Tale of Two Wasteland compliance. There's other bugs in this script that we will fix at a different time. Okay. Right here, it's the 14-day advance. Okay. Now, 14 days, and then we see this 9 years later business. Okay. I don't want it to be 14 days. I want it to be 3 years. Okay. That's exactly what I want it to be. Oh, you know what? We have another bug. We have another bug. TDX. Just realized something. Comment below if you know what it is. I'm about to tell you right here. The only time that time is getting advanced is if you're in hardcore mode, which should be not true. So else set, what is it, game hour? Oh, I forgot the name of the function, and this window is too big. Yeah, game hour. Okay, set game hour to game hour plus 2. That's a local. And then, so we're doing an if-else structure here now. So basically, if hardcore tracking's on, turn it off, advance time, come back. Okay. Otherwise, we don't have to do any of the turning off, and we just set game hour to game hour plus 14. All right, cool. That fixes it. We're probably going to change that at a later date when I implement something else that's a little bit different, but that's okay. All right, so right here, we want to advance by 2 weeks, 9 years. What is it? I want to advance it by 3 years. Okay, so here is the trick. We can look up how many days are going to be in between these two dates, figure it out because calendars work in a particular way. Or we can just use the Tale of Two Wastelands formula that they used, just so that we have, whoops, that's not the right one, consistency between the two modes of travel. Okay, and the amount of time is calculated here. Copy. And I don't know where that variable is defined. Whatever. Close. We'll take a look at it right now. Okay. So right here, this is saying we're going to travel. We've removed the fuel. And go right here. Okay. Now, all right. Yeah, we're going to declare a integer. It's supposed to be hours traveled is what we'll call it. And actually, come over here. Yeah. And that's what we're going to use here. I don't want to step on Tale of Two Wastelands' toes by taking any of their formula here. And I'm going to get rid of this game hour business. Whoops. I got rid of everything but the game hour business. There we go. Okay, so we would check this out. 1521.5 is the amount of days that they used. I don't agree with that number, but that's okay. It's perfectly fine. Minus get game days past since this mark right here. Okay, so that's the beginning of Fallout 3. If you add this many days to it, that's supposed to be the beginning of New Vegas. They multiply by 24 because that's the number of hours. Okay, great. So what we're going to do right here is if, and we are promptly going to forget everything in our brain on how we did the check, TDX. All right, and we go to the van travel script because that's the one we did previously. Get hardcore tracking. That's what it is. Get hardcore tracking. If get hardcore tracking is the same as 1, okay, then we want to call TDX hardcore safe advance hours to, oh, whoops, not 2. And also, what's with those semicolons? Those are supposed to be else. And then we go hours traveled. And it helps if I'm consistent with how I spelled the word traveled. There we go. It helps if I'm consistent with how I spelled everything. Else, set game hour to hours traveled plus game hour. We'll go ahead and end this logical if statement here. Once I delete all this crap. Boop, 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 boop. End if. And let's save it. Yay, I didn't introduce any new errors. Okay. So, to recap, what did we do today? All right, I use this button here. Yeah. To bring it into 3.2 compliance, we looked at everywhere that the safe, advanced, hardcore hours, whatever it was, that was an old version of a function from Tale of Two Wastelands in the scripts. Okay. Then what we introduced was instead, we did a check. First off, we had to check, is hardcore mode being used in the game? Okay. If it is, then call a function that we completely rewrote that'll basically turn hardcore tracking off for a second, advance the amount of time we want, and then turn it back on. Okay. Or just advance time normal because it doesn't matter. All right. I guess there's one last thing we didn't do, which is incorporate this into the trip the very first time that we do it. That was never there, and so I forgot about it, but we need to put it in right there. All right, so we advanced the needs. This was blocking our view here. I took the advanced hardcore needs with the hunger, hydration, and sleep, and we put it in if tracking is being used. Okay. So we did all that stuff today. That's fantastic. This thing is actually now compliant to TTW 3.2. Fantastic. I don't know what this nav mesh thing is. Don't care. I'm just going to hit OK. All right. Thank you guys very much for watching. Stay tuned for other videos where we'll go over other aspects in mod, the other things that are on our task list. All right. I don't know why I'm doing finger guns. Where's the stop recording button?